right, chapter 11. In order to speak pure Latin, we must take care not only to use words with which nobody can justly find fault and preserve the construction by proper cases and tenses and genders and numbers, so that there may be nothing confused or incongruous or preposterous, but also that the tongue and the breath and the tone of the voice come under proper regulation. I would not have letters sounded with too much affectation or uttered imperfectly through negligence. I would not have the words dropped out without expression or spirit. I would not have them puffed and, as it were, panted forth with a difficulty of breathing, for I do not as yet speak of those things relating to the voice which belong to oratorical delivery, but merely of that which seems to me to concern pronunciation. For there are certain faults which every one is desirous to avoid, as a too delicate and effeminate tone of voice, or one that is extravagantly harsh and grating. There is also a fault which some industriously strive to attain. A rustic and rough pronunciation is agreeable to some, that their language, if it has that tone, may seem to partake more of antiquity, as Lucius Cotta, and an acquaintance of yours, Catullus, appears to me to take a delight in the broadness of his speech and the rough sound of his voice, and thinks that what he says will savor of the antique, if it certainly savor of rusticity. But your harmony and sweetness delight me. I do not refer to the harmony of your words, which is a principal point, but one which method introduces, learning teaches, practice in reading and speaking confirms. But I mean the mere sweetness and pronunciation, which, as among the Greeks, it was peculiar to the Athenians, so in the Latin tongue is chiefly remarkable in the city. At Athens, learning among the Athenians themselves has long been entirely neglected. There remains in that city only the seed of the studies which the citizens do not cultivate, but which foreigners enjoy, being captivated in a manner with the very name and authority of the place. Yet any illiterate Athenian will easily surpass the most learned Asiatics, not in his language, but in sweetness of tone, not so much in speaking well as in speaking agreeably. Our citizens pay less attention to letters than the people of Latin. Yet, among all the people that you know in the city who have the least tincture of literature, there is not one who would not have a manifest advantage over Quintus Valerius or Sora, the most learned of all the Latins in softness of voice, in conformation of the mouth, and in the general tone of pronunciation. 12. And there is a certain tone of voice, therefore, peculiar to the Roman people and city, in which nothing can offend or displease, nothing can be liable or what is that word? Animadversion to nothing sound or savor of what is foreign. Let us cultivate that tone and learn to avoid not only the asperity of rustic, but the strangeness of outlandish pronunciation. Indeed, when I listened to my wife's mother, Lelia, for women more easily preserve the ancient language unaltered, because not having experience of the conversation of a multitude of people, they always retain what they originally learned. I hear her with such attention that I imagine myself listening to Plautus or Navius. She has a tone of voice so unaffected and simple that it seems to carry in it nothing of ostentation or imitation, from whence I judge that her father and forefathers spoke in like manner, not with a rough tone as he whom I mention, nor with one broad or rustic or too open, but with one that was close and equable and smooth. Our friend Coda, therefore, whose broad manner of speaking you, Sulpicius, sometimes imitate, so as to drop the letter I and pronounce E as full as possible, does not seem to me to resemble the ancient orators, but the modern farmers. As Sulpicius laughed at this, I will act with you, said Crassius, in such a manner that, as you oblige me to speak, you shall hear something of your own faults. I wish we may, replied Sulpicius, for that is what we desire, and if you do so, we shall today, I fancy, throw off many of our inelegances. But, said Crassius, I cannot censure you, Sulpicius, without being in danger of censure myself, since Antonius has declared that he thinks you very similar to me. But rejoined Sulpicius, as Antonius also recommended us to imitate those things which were most conspicuous in any one, I am afraid, in consequence that I may have copied nothing from you but the stamping of your foot and a few peculiar expressions, and perhaps something of your action. With what you have caught from me, then, says Crassus, I find no fault lest I should ridicule myself, but there are many more and greater faults of mine than you mention. Of faults, however, which are evidently your own, or taken by imitation from any third person, I shall admonish you whenever opportunity may remind me of them.